Welcome to the Rob Browne Sidelines SEC Sidelines Sports.
Well, they have the jug band is going to play for us.
I have a guitar. I'm going to bust it out one day.
That's right. Bust out that electric guitar. Hey, it is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Rob Browne, Brendan Martin here with you. A lot to cover today. Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers the Dogs.
Love Jordan Davis Hill.
Bulldogs. Love him.
Love it.
Guys everywhere. Works harder. And I did see an Amish family at the Memphis Zoo Saturday. He works harder than a dozen Amish farmers on a barn raising to bring you great coverage of Georgia and the SEC and college football.
That sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Yeah, right after him, Jason Caldwell, AU undercover 24/7 Sports, going to join us as well. And then Yancey Porter, who has been living at Swayze Field Stadium there in Oxford.
Patrick Swayze. Oh, no. That's
it's going to try to make it today. Now, Rodney Orr, I think, is out today. Got the summer, got kind of crazy with grandkids going to summer school and some stuff, but he'll be back with us quickly. But Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, will check in the second half. We're going to cover a lot of baseball today. Take a picture with your cellular of the QR code. We're on X. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're all over the place. And we got a channel here with content updated daily. It's the place to be. SEC Sidelines Sports Network. Let's get Jordan Davis Hill in here.
Let's get it on.
Yeah, and Jordan, welcome aboard. Thank you for sharing your Tuesday morning with us. I watched Georgia over there in that regional. Man, is it Foley Field? They have put a lot into baseball, and they got knocked out. But long term, you got Wes Johnson. Great pitching coach, full of confidence. Talk about, where they go from here. And, we don't hear too much about the portal or NIL with baseball. It's there, but Georgia's on solid ground, I think, in baseball, like they hadn't been in a long time.
No, I totally agree. And you mentioned Foley Field. They've made a lot of renovations really just in the 2 years that Wes Johnson's been there. And, I know Georgia fans are disappointed with how things played out, them getting put out by Oklahoma State. But the biggest thing is they've got Wes Johnson for, at least these next few years. Mississippi State went after Wes Johnson really hard. And Wes was a guy that was a pitching coach at Mississippi State. I think that was 2016. So he was a top candidate, I believe, for that job. So to keep him, they've done a lot and met a lot of, I don't really want to say the demands, but the things that he's wanted to make a part of this baseball program as far as resources and facilities. So I know fans are disappointed, and the way they lost that game was brutal. They had a chance to get a double play to end the inning. I think it was the pitcher who got over to cover, couldn't get his foot on the bag, and then the next batter hits a walk-off home run. So that's sort of how it goes sometimes, at baseball. As much as we talk about football being a game of inches, baseball can be the exact same way. But I think that this program is going to be a contender for years to come, and I have to imagine the way that thing ended, that's going to motivate a whole lot of the guys that are coming back for 2026.
Yeah, and you had Condon last year. By the way, how's he doing in his climb toward the majors?
So he has missed a good part of the spring. I can't remember the injury he was dealing with, but he just got back maybe a week or two ago, and not long after that, he hit a home run and had people excited. So his 2025 has gotten off to a slow start, but it's mainly just been he's been hurt and rehabbing, but he's been back. And from what I have seen, it seems like he's done a good job in the short time he's been playing.
Well, you start getting players like that, it just draws people in. And Wes Johnson is a great pitching coach with a great reputation. That helps. And just out of curiosity, I know you don't cover the baseball like who is the young lady that you said covers baseball for your site?
Yeah, Olivia Sayer. She does a fantastic job, and shout out to her. These last few weeks, she's been kind of double dipping. She covers baseball for us, and she's an intern with Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I don't know. I've texted her a few times and been like, Olivia, if you need someone to help out, but she's done it, and she's done a fantastic job.
Well, you know what? You can't get better training than those deadlines. You think about the pressure. Looking at football now, we had Roman Harper on yesterday, and we were and Coach Ellis Johnson. That was a lot of fun. A lot of X's and O's, a lot of football minutia that was put in the vernacular, and they did a great job of it.
Right.
And I didn't realize that when DuBose and that staff was, fired at Alabama, he said Coach Johnson was the coach recruiting me at Alabama. And he called me and my family and said, don't worry, somebody from Alabama is going to be in touch with you. And that was really cool. I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you're on these shows, but it was neat. But talking about football, everybody is looking at Georgia, but it starts with the defense. And Roman named off just stud after stud in the last 9 years. And talk about the development and what the plan is for the summer and any new people they've brought in, freshmen or portal.
Yeah, well, you look at the defense specifically, the plan right now, they're back at workouts. I think it was last week they posted some photos of the guys in the weight room. This is the time of year where, you still got your workouts going on. You're going to have, like throw-in sessions and stuff like that. That can't be organized by the coaches, but you have a lot of that, especially when it comes to the offensive side. But defense, fascinated to see what this group winds up looking like, because it's a year, much like pretty much every other year for Georgia, where, they lost a lot of talent to the NFL, and they've got guys that they've got to replace and step up. They had 3 first-rounders from that defense: Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, and Malachi Starks. I like what they're working with, and I'd say some of the new guys to keep an eye on. I would look at Elijah Griffin, defensive lineman from Savannah, 5-star freshman. I don't think he's going to start, but he's a guy that's going to play quite a bit early on and going to be part of that rotation. Looking at some of the transfers they've had, probably the most intriguing one to me is Elo Mendoza, a guy they got from Army, a guy that's going to be probably their starting outside linebacker, and a guy that you go look at his film at Army, and you can kind of tell, he had the upper hand on that competition, but obviously who he was facing at Army, aside from like Notre Dame, compared to who he's going to be facing at Georgia on a weekly basis, very significant jump up. Fascinated to see once he gets to Georgia how he gets settled in, because he transferred in after spring, so he was not there for spring practice. So fall camp, I think if we get to watch any practice, I think we'll probably hear Elo's name a few times, and it probably won't be compliments, but that's just part of the experience. And then as far as the defense and new guys, the only other person I would really look at is Zion Branch, who's Zachariah Branch's brother. And, Zion came along and transferred with him from USC, and there wasn't a ton of talk, a lot of attention about Zion, just because of how good of a skilled player Zachariah is. Zion is a big safety, and they need someone to step up at safety. And it's been a competition. I think Ja'Cory Thomas, who's a guy that's been at Georgia this will be his 4th year, I think he's got the lead in that competition, but I would not write off Zion Branch, a big physical hitter at safety. He's going to do what he can to get in that competition and see if he might be able to win the job when it's all said and done.
I want to give credit. Lawrence Smith said this 3 years ago. He goes, I don't know why the NFL teams don't get involved in NIL. The colleges are supplying all the players. If I were the Eagles ownership group, I would make a significant contribution to Georgia football as long as Kirby and the staff are there, based on the product they're sending me. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. I don't know that it's going to happen, but the thing that I will
or if it's
say,
legal.
Yeah. We need anything we can do to avoid more litigation in college athletics. That'd be great with me. I feel like the
what's legal in college athletics anymore? I don't even know what. I think we should just talk about what we know is illegal. Because I think if we get to that at the end, I don't even know what's cheating anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's like in the last week since they've had SEC spring meetings. I feel like every radio hit I go on, any podcast I go on, I have notes like I'm getting ready for a communication law class. Like, I mean, I have stuff written down just from what I've learned because it's gotten so complicated. But the one thing I will say.
Has this happened to you, Jordan? Sorry to interrupt you, but just based on what you just said, do you ever find that you write a bunch of notes down and then in 5 minutes you go on a show and then you're like, oh, that's all, that news is all changed now. Or that roster is not the same now. Or that guy's just been pulled to the portal. Or this is different. Like, does it seem like the news cycle is like going like a hamster and a hamster wheel, and it's just getting faster and faster? It's harder to keep up.
Well, I think the biggest thing I've learned is to be comfortable saying I don't know, or
Yeah,
like, hey, I need to look that up, just
it's a
because
great point.
there's so much, even when we set aside like the the house settlement and the stuff like that, sort of like I said, the litigation stuff. Even when talking about like when we talk about Georgia basketball, I feel pretty comfortable talking about where they are. I couldn't tell you anything about the rest of the league, and that's a product of just the transfer portal, what they brought
Right.
in. We don't really know what those lineups are going to look like. It's like I was talking to a friend the other day talking about SEC Media Day for basketball, which, if I'm remembering right, is usually like October.
Yeah.
And it's like, got a lot of time between now and then to study these rosters, because I have no idea how I would rank the teams 1 to 16. It's just, that's sort of the world we live in, where we're trying to learn as much as we can about all these other teams.
Well, okay, we have a new element now, right? It's called the draft, right? So guys go and test the draft, and then they're going to come back. Like, look what just happened at Florida, right? Like, this is not the transfer portal. You're not recruiting. It's not. Now we've got the draft. The guys are going to go test and come back in. It's like another layer. Are you going to lose somebody, or not? Then are you going to take the dump truck full of cash and go dump it in front of their house or not? I mean, that's where we're at, right?
And I would say I sincerely feel bad for the coaches. And Rob, I don't know how closely you followed Auburn and Tahad Pettiford. It worked out for Auburn, but they were in a situation where, they're waiting to see what Tahad's going to do. And say Tahad went pro, they're kind of stuck, as far as what they're going to do, just because of when that timing was. Like, they would have had to go try to find somebody. So it keeps you on your toes. And I know Jason Caldwell will be on here in a minute. He knows that story well. And y'all give me a tough job going in front of Jason.
Here you go. I just went and got him for you, Jordan. Bitch and moan. Here you go. Welcome to the program, Mr. Caldwell. Thanks for joining us. Your friend Jordan's been missing you.
Yeah, I'm doing great. When they told me Jason Caldwell was following me, I about dropped off. I knew that. I don't want to have to go in front of that act.
Whatever.
Shoot, I tell you what, both of y'all, I watch lots of podcasts, and both of y'all, what I really respect is, if you don't know, you will say you don't know. And you cannot get Jason the entire time that the Potato Men were there at Auburn. He would not go, Rob, it's going to be okay. he was like, I don't know. And it just, but that's why when y'all are on, so many people watching, they'll say, I learn a lot. And, you just mentioned, Jason, about Tahad Pettiford. The guys going and testing the draft waters, I wish they would do more of that in football too.
Yeah, but Jordan mentioned the downside of that is, sooner or later a coach has to know who's on his roster.
Yeah.
And in football, you've already got the draft window, and you've got a portal window, signing day. Like, I understand. Yes, it'd be great. But on the flip side of that, and I had this discussion with somebody this past weekend, because we were talking about it in every sport right now. And the funny thing is when I'm driving, I listen to a lot of national guys, and I listen, not ESPN side. I listen to like college sports radio. So I listen to these guys and listen like Rick Neuheisel and others. And there's still a disconnect from people who cover things nationally and from people who are boots on the ground on college campuses, because the national side of things is, they still got it tough, even though they're making money. When you're covering these kids, you understand, like right now, they have everything of the power. They have every bit of it. Hey, I'm all for it. Get your money and do those things. But right now, as Jordan said, a college coach, it's an impossible job.
Yeah.
It is absolutely impossible. I'm getting ready to cover a baseball super regional. They win a regional this past weekend, and the portal opened yesterday.
God.
So, but I talked to Butch and Carl Nonamaker and those guys. They said, look, we will work for 9 hours Monday. 8 of those will be on the phone talking to potential portal targets as we're preparing to play a super regional this weekend. Because if you don't, it's over with. I mean, there's a reason why Mississippi State announced their head coach an hour after they were eliminated in a regional. Because it starts over. There's no end. There's no beginning. It's just one continuous stream, and it's an impossibility right now until something changes.
Yeah. Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jason hit the nail on the head. I mean, and I think it's very similar with basketball. I think the portal opened as the NCAA tournament was getting underway. So I don't envy these coaches at all. You know, I think they probably look back on 5-10 years ago as like the good old days of, I feel like so much of the conversation, especially like with football, is like, man, look at how much these coaches are getting paid.
Yeah,
I can't really argue that the guys are getting overpaid right now just because of what's put on their plate and what they have to balance, especially, Kirby Smart talked about this at SEC spring meetings where, they're really pushing for one portal window for football and for it to be in January. And Kirby brought up, now that might mean there's some teams still playing, but like basically that's the best option they have. So there's no great answer, but it's definitely tough on these coaches. There's always something going on.
Yeah, and it's the not knowing. I mean, that we talked about that last night at the Touchdown Club. The speaker, Tyler Siskey, does a podcast. He said, I don't know who's playing for who, and both of y'all. I mean, honestly, Lee Perryman, Radio Alabama Group. Him, Jason. I know him. He's the guy who wrote the program for that crawl that you see at the bottom of the screen. He's the one who came up with that from Sylacauga, Alabama, where Jason's from. He's very smart. He's a genius. That's what you've got to have, isn't it? I mean, I like having a roster. I like a magazine. I buy them all. Do y'all buy them all still and break them down?
I don't anymore because again, I don't know. I might probably should at this time of year, but even then, I don't know that but here's the thing. I guess they can help you with a roster and go, hey, here's who's on the team, but not unless you go to print after the spring portal windows close. And even then you don't know who these guys are. And so it's kind of like for me, this really early preseason top 25, there's no chance you know what you're talking about other than going, hey, these guys are usually pretty good. Let's put them up there again.
Listen,
I don't know.
We own a magazine. We've owned a Gatorade magazine's been around a long, long time. We digitized it a long time ago because cost effectiveness, blah, 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 blah. But the information, the only thing you really get out of that is great pictures if you've got a photographer. Now we have a photographer, Chris Spears, very talented. So like we're going to do something for, for the national championship with basketball. But you got hardware for that. That's not going anywhere. That's history, right? So you're going to do it. But it's just tough to be those guys anymore, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's why the 24/7 Sports is where you got to go to get all your information. Jason knows that as well as anybody.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I was did magazine and website together for 25 years, and it's the same thing. I decided like it's a different world. Your access is different. Everything about it's different. And so because of that, it's really the only way to do in my opinion, to do a print magazine now is to do it that way, where you have, hey, here's what a season might look like once you get a roster done. But the weekly, it's almost impossible now because the constant flow of information. And it's changed the recruiting world as much as anything, as Jordan will tell you. Like, there's still interest in recruiting, but it is nothing like it was 10 years ago. Like, it is a completely different world because, hey, fans are, I won't say immune, but they understand that just because a guy has a good visit, it don't mean a whole lot anymore. Until they can get regulation where then you start to go, okay, now somewhat equal footing, and there's still going to be a salary cap basically, and somebody may decide to spend more money on a player than another position, but at least you'll have an idea of kind of what it looks like. Right now it is just, hey, throw it out there and see what happens, because that's what teams are doing all over the country.
I feel like you're going to have to put like some sort of you're going to have to be able to keep some guys, but you're going to, I think you got to add that component, Jason.
I think what Jordan was talking about about the
salary
portal window, those things. I think if you get to, hey, if you sign with us, you've got to stay 2 years.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, then it makes those portal windows much less of an issue, because at least you have 45 guys, that are on your roster. Those guys can't go anywhere. Yeah. And then you start to have an idea of, okay, well, at least we cut that in half of who guys we have to deal with. I don't know. There's so many issues right now.
Here's something interesting. Our friend Matt Dean, who's on the show with us Thursdays, his son Tyler is the director of scouting and player personnel at Oregon with Dan Lanning, going into his 4th year. He did 4 with Jimbo before that. Well, remember a month ago, they had that big 5-star recruit, Dan Lanning, was at his commitment party, jumped in the pool shirtless with him. And 17 days later, the kid's going to, I think, Southern Cal. How'd you feel doing that, Jordan? I mean, that's tough.
It's so unpredictable. I mean, and I'm sure that Jason's seen examples of this with Auburn, but, looking at Georgia specifically, there's been a lot of hard feelings in the last few days about Mark Bowman, a big-time 5-star tight end that, it seemed like for the longest time it was going to be Georgia or Texas. And then come to find out USC has gotten into his recruitment and he committed. Now, there's conversation about how much money he was made, how much money he got. I don't believe a whole lot of that. I think a lot of that turns into sour grapes and people being upset. But that is sort of the nature of following recruiting right now is, with plenty of guys. There are plenty of guys you can still kind of follow and get a good sense of who's in the mix. But there are other guys where things just kind of take a turn and all of a sudden you're going, yeah, this is what we thought was happening. And then something else happened instead.
Guys, there was a reason recruiting was such great drama and news and made good. I used to always say, look, what's bigger than college football season? Well, that would be National Signing Day. Back then, we tracked more numbers on recruiting than we did for regular football season. So I see that's in half now on our numbers and interest, because you've got to invest, right, as the fan, right? So you only have a certain amount of time that you're going to want to get information, and then what you want the most pertinent and latest info, right? So we just see that decline in that interest, and so we're not going to put resource towards covering that, right? Yeah. Because what's the point, right? That doesn't make business fiscal sense.
And I'm like, Jason, both of y'all, I know, Jason, you love baseball like Cameron does. I mean, I think that is your favorite sport. Jordan, I think everybody in the South, you grow up, baseball's huge. How do the numbers on baseball, I'll start with you, Jason, covering Auburn, they're going into a super regional. How do they compare to previous years? I mean, it got to be an increase.
Yeah, I think some of it is when you devote time to it as it builds, so does your audience. I think that's some of it. Obviously, as you keep winning, it builds even more. I mean, they had 22,000 people here last weekend, and now you have game threads that probably were 5,000 or 6,000. Early in the season when it's cold and you still got basketball going on. Now you're talking about 15,000, 20,000, and so or more. So it builds, interest builds, like anything else. I mean, heck, softball wins, people show up, they'll be interested. Football is still the one that is the ultimate driver. But that obviously is, I think there's less interest during these months than there were. I mean, because it was all football all the time for the first 20 years I did this job.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. It's August. Now we'll start to really think about football again. Basketball helps that. Georgia makes the NCAA tournament. You win the league. There's more interest in basketball. Obviously, that makes a difference. But yes, now you have golf that does good. People follow golf. They do things like that.
Yeah.
It is not just all football, which is great, but it also means that people are less invested from a day-to-day living, breathing college football than they've ever been in my lifetime. And there's more information available than there's ever been, but because of the other stuff. people are less interested. And hey, people watch people are like, oh, people watch the NFL too. They do. They'll watch the NFL, but they don't live it.
No.
And college football is starting to get that. People still going to watch the games. They're still going to make all the money they want to on TV contracts. But showing up, doing all the things that people do every day, I think it's taking a hit.
Jason, Jordan, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I was going to say that Jason hit on is people love a winner. If you can find a sport that gets good and stays consistent, people are going to jump on. And, men's basketball is trying to get there for Georgia. Football, it's been a situation where, Georgia is still where it is and is still, the big breadwinner and the most successful of these major programs for Georgia. But, to bring back Georgia baseball, I mean, what Wes has built in 2 years, there is a big concentration of the fans who love baseball and follow it. And again, I'm so glad we got Olivia Sayer on our site this spring because she did a great job. We got to
bring her on the show. We got to bring her on the show.
Yeah, I can make that happen. Olivia's great, but yeah, I mean, there was a want to follow that baseball team a lot closer, and you could see it in the game threads even before we got into SEC play. So if these major sports, if you can find a winner, it's a great way to get fans on board. Nobody likes anything more than winning, and they will follow a team if they feel like they got a chance to win it all.
Everyone wants to talk smack on social media, man. Everybody wants to run some smack. Even if it's golf smack, you still want to run, especially in a down year. You're like, well, we still won. Yeah. We won the Natty in golf.
Yeah.
It's all about the hardware, man.
It is. And look, I know both of y'all, we got to get y'all two on together again. You are two of the absolute best we have on here because you don't say things to placate people, which I think is so important. You just tell the truth. And this is what I wish y'all had spare time to do it, but you should be teaching these young people and all because it's so important that y'all do it right. And I get his dad, Buddy Martin, helps me so much. And boy, sometimes you kind of feel like, oh my God, but he's right. He's been there and done it. But tell both of y'all, tell people how they can follow you. We're going to bring Chris Lee in from Southeastern 16, talk some more baseball. But this discussion, some of the most truthful stuff I've heard in a long time. But Jason, sign out, let people know, and we'll do it again next week.
Yep. Yeah, check us out, auburnundercover.com. As George said, 24/7. Come follow us. Coverage. As I said, baseball finishing up. We'll see if they can make a run and I can make a road trip to Omaha again. But football is around the corner. Recruiting, official visits, all that. So come check us out there and follow me, Twitter, ITAT Jason. Thanks, guys.
I think I'm on your site 35 times a day before.
That's all right. We'll take it. We love it.
You bet. Take care. All right, Jordan, let them know how they can follow you.
Definitely, dogs247.com. We got a 60% off sale right now, so I'd tell folks to go check that out. And, if you sign up there, you can bounce over to Auburn Undercover, see what you guys got going on, see what's going on the boards. And got the Junkyard Dogcast podcast, and folks can follow me at Jordan Davis Hill. So we'll keep this thing going, and happy to catch up with y'all, and always good to talk to Jason.
Shoot, man, we're blessed to have both of you. Take care.
See you guys.
Man, I tell you what, and Brendan, that was cool what you said about digitizing everything. And you just
our green room is stacking up.
We got Chris.
Tell you to stop talking because we're going to bring Brent. Chris, thanks for holding on, Chris.
Chris, thank you.
My favorite guest. Thanks for coming in. And we've also going to bring in Yancey Porter. We'll put him in with us this time. Hey, Yancey, you there?
I'm here, guys. How are you?
Now, last night, Chris, I'm texting Yancey. I'm at a Touchdown Club spring meeting in Memphis, and he goes, "I'm at the field. I was at the ballpark 12 hours on Sunday." He was there again last night. But Yancey, this is Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, and we're going to talk some baseball. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I am getting as into this as March Madness.
Yeah,
that's just my take.
I think it's a phenomenal sporting event. Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy. I'm sorry.
In Mississippi, it's bigger than March Madness. It's, I told you, Rob, there's thousands of fans that can't get into the stadium that are just in the parking lots, drinking beer, watching on the big screens like a football tailgate. It's, it's a very sad day in Oxford today.
Yeah. Chris, you watched that last night, 12-11. They never quit.
Yeah, I had two TVs. I had one watching Tennessee and one watching Ole Miss. And like every time I looked up, Murray State hit a ball where there was not a fielder. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. So I think Ole Miss was a little bit snake bitten. But I'm starting to wonder, like, I know these SEC teams backwards, forwards, and sideways, and did my due diligence on other teams. It almost felt like a weekend where just throw out what is ever's on paper in terms of talent and skill and who's going to, the draft next month and who did what. Like, it was whoever showed up, with the grittiest team felt like the the one that advanced, and we saw it in Oxford last night.
Yancey, speaking of that, the crowds, what you have, 35 to 40,000?
Yeah, I think it's the fire code's like 12,500. They don't allow any more than that in the stadium now. That started in 2022 or 3, where they put a limit on how many you can put into the stadium. Used to, they would just sell unlimited tickets out in the outfield, but they stopped that a few years ago. So right around there, 12,500 a game.
Yeah. And the TV too, Chris, and I asked this question yesterday to Bill Cameron and Dan Peck on the drive, ESPN 106.7, the afternoon drive in Auburn yesterday. I said, here's Auburn number 4 seed, and they're relegated to the ESPN Plus. And they said they just had to make tough decisions because there's so many games, and they've got the softball World Series going on. So there's a lot of ball being played.
There is, and like in Auburn's case too, I think everybody's watching either their team or they're watching squeeze play. And squeeze play focuses on the close games. Like, I barely saw Auburn play all weekend. And you know why it wasn't intentional? Because Auburn just lapped everybody they played every game. And you're watching, Vanderbilt and Wright State in a, nail biter and all these other games across the country, Ole Miss. And so that was another weird dynamic of the weekend too.
Yeah. And Yancey, this is year 25 for Mike Bianco at Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And let's talk about, their future. I mean, what are they, what's his outlook? And he's not an old guy.
No, he's 57 years old.
Young man.
I think he'll coach another 20 years. Will it all be at Ole Miss? Who knows? We'll see. But, people ask all the time, is he going to retire? Is he going to go in the administration? No, he's not even thinking about that. He's in the prime of his career. All things being equal, Ole Miss was ninth in the SEC this year in NIL. Why they were ninth is been a huge hot topic at Ole Miss this past year with baseball being so important, not only at Ole Miss but in the state of Mississippi. Why you would ever allow the program to be ninth in the SEC and the NIL is kind of unfathomable. But that is changing. They're tripling their NIL budget this year. So things are about to change in a hurry with the roster and the talent to get in there. They were thin a little bit in pitching. When you lose game 1 and you got to win 4 in a row, it really exposes that. And they played bad defensively. There was a lot of unlucky. I mean, they had 7 hits to the pitcher and first base last night. It's just that's more than you usually get. Maybe in a month. So there's a lot of bad luck there as far as that. But the talent level wasn't quite what some of the upper echelon teams. Offensively, they were as good as anybody in the country. But I think that there's a lot of hope again now that they're going to get serious about baseball in the NIL world.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Chris, 13 SEC teams in the regionals, only 4 advanced to the super regionals. Vanderbilt, I think, shocked us all, but didn't they lose as a high seed just a few years ago to a team? Look, there's good baseball played all over the country. Every time Butch Thompson's on here, he says, let me tell you something. We play these teams, and I study them. They're doing things that we don't do, and when you get in the tournament, you better be, it's like you better be studying for your final exams.
Yeah, they lost as the number 1 overall in 2007 to Michigan, but they got to the title game then. This time they didn't even get there. They finished 3rd in their own regional.
Yeah.
Chris, why do I want to just give Vanderbilt the game ball for like the last 12 months for like as overhaul? Like, I just feel like Vandy's NIL is like slowly surging. It's not by mistake, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it took them 3 years to figure out what the rest of the world did. 3 years ago, which is pretty typical for Vanderbilt. But I give the chancellor a lot of credit. He greenlit some things that I didn't think that ever could get greenlit at Vanderbilt, and that they're. I mean, it's funny. The game threads at Vandy 24/7 when when it was ending or ended were like, well, let's move on to football season. Get excited about that, which that's not something you typically hear, but that's part of all that.
Yeah, football season, baseball season. I mean, it's great. Now everyone's good. It's like,
Yancey,
and Vandy was same thing with Ole Miss, and it's the old adage of what you do with that SEC tournament, right?
Yep.
Ole Miss played 9 games in 9 days, and Vandy I think played 7 or 8 in 9 days. When you go that deep into the SEC tournament, and Vandy and Ole Miss made a huge mistake of losing that first game where you add a couple games extra to your regional. It's tough. If both of them win the first game, and they only need 3 wins to get out of their regional, and then it's not near as tough, right? When you go that deep into the finals of the SEC tournament, but when you do, and you got to go 5 games deep into your regional, you can get exposed.
Yeah, what Chris, SEC baseball this year, that's the most teams that the league has ever sent, but around the country again, Wright State. What is that in Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah, Ohio has like 40
Ohio
schools.
or Indiana?
I think it's Ohio. I think pretty sure it's Ohio. But there's these kids. I'm just curious where a lot of them are from. That's always interesting to see where they're coming from. But the league's going to catch a lot of flack from around the country. But that's what makes college so much fun. 4 out of 13 advance. Give me a number what you thought would advance, and then I'm curious, Yancey, what you thought that number would be.
Oh, I mean, I thought they'd have 5 in Omaha and probably 8 here. I mean, there's no doubt it's a disappointment.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. I mean, they still could have the last 2 teams playing again pretty easily between Auburn and whoever comes out of the right side between Tennessee, LSU, and Arkansas. So it may end better than it's begun, but we'll see.
Yeah, Yance.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I would have figured 8 to the Supers and probably 5 to Omaha, somewhere in that. But look, it's only going to get stronger. I talked to a couple of agents and some prominent travel league owners throughout the country, and not only is Ole Miss really moving forward with NIL and baseball, but so are several other programs in the SEC. Mississippi State's going to quadruple their NIL. They're going a lot of teams. They were this football and basketball and especially basketball has gotten so out of hand with the NIL landscape where you've got just average starters now making $2 million a year, which was more than what the whole NIL is contributed to a baseball program. So to a lot of them, Vandy had an outstanding NIL this year. I think A&M led, then it was LSU, then Tennessee, and then there was a drop off, and it was Vandy right there at the number 4 in the SEC and NIL. But they were very competitive. But people have got to, universities have got to make a they got to make decisions. When you have schools like Ole Miss averaging, 12 and a half thousand people at baseball games, and you can put another 3 or 4 game easily if there are enough seats, and there's going, expansions are going away at several programs. You can't ignore baseball like that. It's just too big, and people say, well, it's not that big compared. It's not near as big as basketball as nationally. Well, most fans don't care if it's popular on the West Coast or the Northeast and Syracuse and all that kind of stuff because we're in the South. This is where we live and this is what we're interested in. And I think you're going to see the dominance of the SEC in baseball take another level next year that we've never seen with what they're about to start investing in the NIL throughout the Southeastern Conference.
Well, here's the stat I'm going to throw out. LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all have larger attendance capacity for baseball than they do basketball. Chris?
Yeah. I mean, it's a phenomenal sport. I think more people are figuring it out as they're watching the postseason. And, the question I always ask is like, what if the SEC network had been around 10 or 15 years before it was? Like, how much more quickly would this have taken off?
That's a good point.
But I mean, people I think are pretty engaged right now.
Yeah. Well, and you look at a school like Florida. Florida's always been so good in everything. 268 SEC championships. And I think sometimes you look at Florida and you're like palm trees, sunshine. It's a given, but they're still O'Sullivan's been to 7 or 8 College World Series, and he's a fiery, Irish Catholic, man. What do you expect?
Can we just talk about O'Sullivan really quick? Chris, your take on his comments after being knocked out.
Yeah, I would still like to know a little bit more of the backstory. And Kevin O'Sullivan is not a super popular guy outside of Gainesville, and who knows, maybe in Gainesville. And when that happens, people are reluctant to defend a guy like that. So there may be a backstory. I don't know. I guess the game time was moved around a couple of times, which is unusual. But I don't know if that was weather related, field related.
1 hour. Yeah, it was.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. I mean, I know that the videos out there are horrible, and there's no defending that. Like even if you had a beef with it, handle it a little differently. Yeah. There was probably some frustration from. These are long days. He's probably tired.
Yeah, it was over a late schedule change. But it was the lateness of the change, right? So that was
was there something about like they didn't know till they got to the stadium, or
I don't know. I'm not going to speak because I don't know the details for sure. But I heard similar things. But again, it came down to the frustration of the timing of the lateness, and that's the frustration. That was the straw that broke his back there.
Yeah. Okay. And I texted somebody down there too, who's usually really plugged in, and he was a little unclear on what happened, had an idea, but I think there's probably some information missing here that's not.
Yeah, he released a statement apologizing for his comments yesterday. It was very, what we would think.
People will move on.
Yeah. In the heat of the moment, probably.
Yancey, I was driving back from Memphis last night, going over the Mississippi River Bridge, listening to a national sports show on Sirius XM Channel 84 about O'Sullivan. They played comments by the Coastal Carolina coach. I mean, far be it from any of us to ever lose our minds over a game, and just with tape, and video and cell phones everywhere. You saw a meme the other day of today. This is how people help, when there's a car wreck or somebody's being mugged, they've got their phones sticking up, videotaping it. But, good going. Jump in there. Yeah, he wrote, Yancey.
Yeah, I just think that probably, we all know there's been some other stuff with Sullivan that have not come to light in the past stuff, some off the field issues. And I think now, if I'm Kevin, what I'm worried about is now the media is going to really dig and bring that stuff to light, and then I think things could get really ugly for him. I really do.
I hope not. I mean, but yeah, you're right. You just never put yourself in.
I think what helps him though is the fact that you got more baseball to play. So I think
winning always helps, right? If he can hang on the next year and go to World Series, and that'll help a lot. But
his contract through 30, right? 2033 or something like that.
The thing about media is when they smell blood, right? They know there's some things that haven't been brought to light yet about him, and I would not be shocked if you start seeing things that they're going to try to snowball on him and bring that stuff in the past to light. And that's when things could get ugly for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see what
We
happens.
thought, you never know. Court of public opinion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly Leak, I love this guy. He's got the picture of that guy from the Bad News Bears. Baseball, best sport ever, in spite of the lack of majorettes and short-skirted cheerleaders. Well, I mean, no cheerleaders in baseball, Chris, but
Banana ball.
How do we live?
how do we make it? But Chris, Yancey, I met Chris a couple of years ago up in Nashville at down at the Grand Hyatt downtown. What both of y'all? I mean, we are. I cannot thank all of y'all enough. And Brendan and I both. You know, I got the best producer in the world, but we get the best guest. Y'all's knowledge of the game and your candor and your honesty when you're talking about this is so appreciated. Chris, we talk a lot about, and you've told me this, and I've got a lot of family that went to Vanderbilt, graduated from the law school and what have you. And going out, there's 35, 40 families. There's a lot of money in Nashville. There's, and then you get into Williamson County. I've sold a lot of bonds over the years. Per capita, number one income in the state of Tennessee. Vandy's got a lot of people with money, but are they asking them? Are they doing the hard ask now? Going, hey, if I'm your doctor, I can't give you a physical just looking below your knees. You know, I need all your money. Think about Floyd the barber.
It's a weird situation. I mean, the school has always been very protective about, you know, where money goes and who donors, you know, who can ask what donor. And I still think that's still going on to some degree. It's hard to tell how much. And I don't have the time to dig into it. You know, I'm busy enough with Southeastern 16 that the time I used to spend investigating those things is now gone somewhere else. But I mean, I think there's always a very, you know, and I've said this to people before. Vanderbilt's, I don't know that Vanderbilt is like any other institution in the SEC, which, well, yeah, I mean, thank you, Captain Obvious. We know that, but it's not run like schools are typically run. It's run by a very small cabal of people. You don't always know who they are. You don't always know who's making decisions. You don't always know why. You don't always know why things happen the way they happen. And that's, you know, it's held athletics back for a long, long time. You know, I think it kicked an athletic director out the door 5 years ago after a year. I mean, it is a really weird place.
Yeah, it's weird. And, you know, Yancey, I go to Oxford a lot. And, Chris, you've been to Oxford, I'm sure, plenty. Yancey lives there. Yancey, I've always said this among the guys I know in my business in Memphis, the Ole Miss Mafia in the securities business, start shaking that cup, you know, and asking for the order. There's a lot of money. And there's a lot of money in the Delta among those big farms. And then you talk about, I always ask you who were Jim and Sandy Black at the Pavilion, what they've given to Ole Miss. And then I think about Dickie Scruggs, the lead, you know, attorney in the tobacco settlement case. I think his take was $700 million. And he had 14 of his buddies from law school, because I do know one of them got 360 over 15 years, 24 million a year. He and his wife each got $2 million a month. How that money, that's where this money's coming from. And Ole Miss has the number 3 ranked accounting school in the country. That's Ole Miss. This is no shock to me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not a shock. I mean, let's be honest. The old setup of you know, pay for players was really, if you were a blue blood, they turned you out. If you weren't, you know, they try to put you in the punishment room for a couple years and put you back down, right? So, you know, you look. I mean, this is arguably Ole Miss's greatest year of athletics. You know, the football finishes top 10. Women's basketball made Sweet 16. Men's basketball made Sweet 16. You know, baseball's a pitch away from the Supers. Softball made it to the World Series. Golf made it to the Final Four. I mean, every single sport has really advanced, you know, very deep in every sport there is. You know, that's because of money. That's because now Ole Miss is able to not have to give the under the table money and worry about the NCAA knocking on the door the next day. So, you know, it's a new era, and they're thriving in it. They got lucky too. They got Walker Jones that have been handling the business over there at Under Armour for many years, and they hired him immediately to run their collective, and he's kind of been the forefront, the leader of the NIL community, and he just happened to be a rebel, and that really sped up the process. And then having Lane Kiffin, you know, who came from the NFL, who had an NIL kind of portal mindset before it even became Frey, and then having Chris Beard, you know, he was getting 7-8 transfers post grad back then before the portal classes even started, coming over from Texas Tech, and you know, then later going to Texas there. They got coaches that were on the cutting edge, and their leadership was on the cutting edge. The coaches were on the cutting edge, and it's just kind of been a perfect storm.
Yeah. You know, Chris, like you, us covering all 16, Southeastern 16, and we cover them all on this show. I feel like you have 16 kids. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
Yancey just laid out brilliantly how it's all coming together at Ole Miss, because it matters a hell of a lot. Now I got to ask you about Mississippi State's new baseball coach. I was listening to your podcast driving across the Mississippi River Bridge, which I hear a lot of great stuff on that bridge. They were fixing potholes the other day, so it was kind of took a while to go over. The rebar collapsed, but that's always a comforting thought in the middle of the bridge. But they fixed it. But talk about Mississippi State's new coach, and you had some guys on that podcast, and that was a great podcast. And you know, Wake Forest pitching, kind of just talk about it real quick.
Yeah, and by the way, an hour from now, we're going to be doing more on it, because I think we've kind of touched on it. I think we do a lot of live stuff these days, and I think it kind of broke. I mean, it had been in the wind for a while, but I think it broke with more certainty, I guess is a good way to put it, however you say it. I mean, nothing's done until the contract signing the guys. But I mean, the writing, I'll just say that the writing was very, very, very much on the wall as we were doing a show. And so we hit it, but we haven't hit it from okay, now he's there and it's official, which we will do today. I was always just kind of skeptical that they could pull O'Connor, and nothing against Mississippi State, but I mean, he'd been there for a long time. He'd won a national title or two, and it'd been to Omaha many times. And, you know, he's older, and they've got, I'm sure, family and ties. I mean, when you're in a place for 20-something years, it's hard to get up and move. Yeah. Unless maybe you're, you know, there's two things, like how happy are you at your current stop and how enticing is the other place. And I just think when push comes to shove, and maybe this is a personal bias, if it feels like a coin flip, it's easier to stay where you are because you know everything that you're dealing with. You know the landscape, and making a move to something that's unknown comes with some risk. And so that's a lot of words, and I apologize, but all that to say, I just thought that was a lot to ask, but they really went all in. And in Mississippi State, every time they got an opening there, they swing for the fence. They swing for a Tim Corbin or someone like that. I mean, they tried to pull him a couple of times and got some traction there at times, honestly. But I mean, it's a great hire. I think, they're probably as invested in baseball relative to the rest of the sports as anybody right now. And we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yancey, just a couple of minutes before we go, and we're going to say something about our sponsors. By the way, great conversation. This is two baseball wizards people. You ain't getting this stuff on national network, coverage. Yancey, anything big we need to be hearing about in the last, 30 seconds before you tag out? Because you're on Rebel Yell Hotline every Monday night at 6 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis, and all over on Super Talk Mississippi.
Well, since Ole Miss baseball sadly came to an end, we got, now as hard as it is, you got to turn the page to football. And I think some good news coming around the corner with Landon Ducksworth. He's, top 5 national quarterback, top 50 national guy, 5-star player. I think he'll commit pretty soon.
Okay. Well, Yancey, thank you as always. I know you're tired, want to get some rest, and have a tall boy.
I got to go make sales now.
That's right. Tall boys, be good. I'll talk to you this week.
You too.
All right, Chris, and let them know again how to follow you and about the podcast in an hour.
Yeah, Southeastern 16 on YouTube is where we have our stuff. You can get your stuff at your audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you want the audio version, you can get them there. But we cover SEC football, baseball, and basketball year-round, all three of them. And if you're looking for a 30,000-foot view of stuff and not just hot takes, I think you'll like what we do.
I love it, man. Hey, thank you so much. We'll do it next week.
Chris. Awesome.
You bet.
Always
is the OG around here.
Yeah, all these guys. I mean, you cannot thank the guys enough. And then Brendan, the graphics and all the stuff that you're doing to make this thing happen. Thank you all watching. Let me say something about Winter Timber, folks. Right now, you're doing a lot of fishing, a lot of outdoor stuff. All your coolers, all your outdoor gear. Get it all. Winter Timber Outdoors in Athens, Alabama, open every day of the week. And they're building a store in Auburn, opens up late July on University Drive. And they're looking to grow in all the towns that are the SEC footprint. All your handguns, fishing, Yeti coolers, Sitka gear, Dixie decoys, duck camp, boots, shoes, and the college polos. Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, they got them all out there. Winter Timber Outdoors. And go online, find them. Also, Landers Ford stopped by there yesterday to see Brad Bellamy, the general manager.
Yeah, you see my car yet? Have you seen my vehicle?
Well, it depends on what you want.
For me? Pick it out for me.
You know what? I hadn't yet, but they've got the 25 Expeditions in. They've got those Broncos.
I mean, I'm 6'4". I feel like an expedition.
6'4", 212 pounds of all muscle.
Built
tough like a Ford truck.
Oh.
F-150s, they got a big selection. A lot of stuff on that lot. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Memphis and Collierville meet, open every day.
$500 off.
$500 off. Don't forget it. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. Also, I went by Hewlett and Dunn. Had to stop by there yesterday, pick up a package. They got these new polos in, these premier polos. Oh, man, they look great. I know they've got them right now for Memphis, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, and Auburn. Premier polos. Also over 7,000 pairs of boots. They got a lot of Filson luggage, man. Great looking stuff. STS gear and luggage. They've also got duck heads, blazers, button downs, polos, devil dog jeans, the Rock Mount shirts that Bob Dylan wears. Elvis wore them. Ronald Reagan wore them. And they've got always the best staff Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m., 6 p.m. on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee.
Closed on Sundays.
Yeah, closed on Sundays. Mother Teresa said, we can all do something. Don't have to do everything. All do something every day to help folks. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Whenever you can, we're all blessed. Give back. It'll return on investment is 1,000 times. Brendan Martin, executive producer. Tonight, the Buddy Martin,
right.
Lowdown with Lauren Meadows, 9 p.m. Eastern on this channel. So I'll be here with Buddy because Lauren is in Paris.
Paris.
Yeah, not Paris, Tennessee, but Paris, France.
I heard he might even try to check in with us.
Oversee the longest caller
I said from the top of the Eiffel Tower, not to be, cliche.
That'd be the farthest guest ever on this channel.
No, that wouldn't be. We've had some people in the military from way back in the day.
And we had Robert Weaver from Alberta, Peace River in Alberta, 42-hour drive from Memphis, watching the show up there. But hey, thank y'all so much for watching. Appreciate it. Stay to this channel all the time. Appreciate it, and see you tonight.
See you tonight. Night, John Boy. We say that. Good night, everybody. Our music's dead. Da, 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 da.